All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ask Me Anything. Today I'm going to be, actually, it's not morning, first of all, it's afternoon. We have completely lost track of time since I've been at home. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to answer questions that everybody submitted yesterday and up to today. If you have questions that you'd like me to answer, I will be looking at comments, so if you want to post some things in comments. But otherwise, we're going to just go ahead and get to our questions. So we will start with looking at my phone. Okay. Um, how is traveling in Italy now? And do most places accept our antiquated paper vaccination card? That's a great question. Yes, they do, actually. So, my experience traveling in Italy is that it's been actually no problem at all. The only problem that I ever had with the paper vaccination card was in Portugal because not everybody was accepting it there, but that was in July. I think at this point, most places are back to accepting them, and they're fine. One great tip that I found this past week, though, because Egypt apparently needs a QR code either on your COVID test or on your vaccine card. My healthcare provider, I'm with Kaiser, they had on their website, not on their app, but on their website, you had to go through a few steps and you could find a printout, which I did. It's a printout page with my name, my vaccination dates, and then a QR code so that I could hand that to officials. And then since then, if you didn't see that post, people from other states have gone and posted where you can get QR codes. My state, Washington State, has several different systems set up. One was called My IR, something like that. Didn't work for me. But the Washington State one did. So now I have a QR code. So I would say if you can do that before you travel anywhere from now on, spend the winter time when you're not traveling looking for yourself from your state or for your healthcare provider some sort of record of your vaccinations with the QR code. But otherwise, yeah, people were fine. Some of the people on my Puglia tour actually did have QR codes printed on paper, and those were accepted everywhere that we went as well. So it actually has been going pretty well with travel there. Let's see. So from Becky Gibson, she says, for Italy travel, I need a Vax card, COVID test 72 hours before, self-declaration, and digital passenger locator form. Then COVID test and self-declaration prior to returning to the U.S. Did I miss anything? No, you did not. And in fact, you're probably over-prepared. Being over-prepared is good. I would say please stay over-prepared. In this particular case, you probably don't need a PCR test, an antigen test is probably okay, but you know what? I'm doing everything, all of the things. Self-declaration and passenger locator form, those have been spottily accepted. Sometimes they've required them, sometimes they didn't even ask. What you want to do is when you get to the airport, check with the person at the check-in counter and find out what they want, because the people who are actually holding the keys to the kingdom are the people at the desk at the airport. It's incumbent upon them to make sure you have the correct documentation. But yes, Becky Gibson, you are correct. I think you've got everything. And then before you return home, as of tomorrow, the new updated standards are basically the same as before for returning to the United States. You need to have a COVID test valid for at least 72 hours, and that can be antigen or PCR, and you can get that done at just about any pharmacy in Italy for sure, and throughout Europe. Just walk into any pharmacy and they have them available. I did one in Matera. It took me 15 minutes, 10 minutes, cost 15 euros. They printed out a vaccine passport, which unfortunately I think I recycled, but it had a QR code on it, and I was good to go. One little tricky thing, as just a little aside, since I'm leaving on a Tuesday, I keep leaving on Tuesdays, and Tuesday is the worst possible day for international travel because if you do a PCR test, there is practically no way for you to get a PCR result on the correct date. Because if I'm leaving Tuesday, I should get the PCR test 48 hours in advance, which would be Sunday today. Nobody's open today. So I took one at the very last appointment yesterday at 4 o'clock, which I think should be getting back, but that's really cutting it close as far as validity for when I get on the airplane on Tuesday. Also, sometimes they're counting not the arrival, or sorry, the departure from the United States, but the departure from the connecting flight. in which case the one I took yesterday would not be valid. So I'm scheduled for one tomorrow too. So I'm going to take one on Saturday and one on Monday. The Monday one, I probably won't have the results when I depart on Tuesday, but they deliver it by email, so I'll have it when I land in Amsterdam. Complicated. So leaving on Tuesday suck. Now, if I get to the airport and they don't take the tests that I have already in hand, there are always testing facilities on site at the airport that you can just spontaneously go to if you have to. The only problem is they're quite expensive. They're in some cases $200 or more. So you just have to kind of budget that as part of your travels now, that sometimes you're going to have to spend $200 on a spontaneous and lame PCR test. I've taken so many PCR tests in the past year, you wouldn't even believe it. So, but it is what it is. It's part of travel now. Another question from Becky Gibson. What's the best place, weather and crowds, or your favorite place to visit in early March? Now, I am a beach and sun lover. I live in Seattle. So by the time March arrives, I am dying for sun. So typically, I like to go someplace with sun. I think that Egypt was a great choice for March. I did that in 2020, right during the COVID pandemic crisis, but that was a great location. It's a little too late for Southeast Asia. I would go Southeast Asia more in January, February. It's a little early for Europe, but it depends on what you're doing. Cities are always great. Paris, Rome. Rome is fantastic. And actually the city tours that we're offering, the staycations, most of those are in March. So Venice, Florence, Rome, a week in each of those. That's a fabulous time to go because March is before travel really takes off and a lot of people are getting ready for Easter. It's a wonderful time. So I would probably say those are some of the best places is to hit European capitals, cities. Otherwise, I would say, you could maybe go to the Mediterranean. Sicily is always possible. You're not going to be able to swim or anything, but Sicily is great year-round. So that was where I would kind of suggest. Will I have a group during the Venice Carnival season in 2022? I haven't planned that right now. That is something I certainly could do. That would be something that I would consider if you had a few people that wanted to do it. I could certainly put that together. I do have a friend on the ground, Stacy, who would be able to do something like that if we had a few people who would be interested in doing it. Kathleen Larkin asks, do you still recommend for sneakers the Superfeet Carbon Pain Relief Strong and Thin insoles? I don't think I recommended those specific ones, but Superfeet 100%. I love my Superfeet insoles. I've put them into several different shoes. Also Dr. Scholl's gel insoles, which are quite a bit cheaper. You can get those at Target. They're fantastic. They're maybe $15. Love them, love them, love them. They're so comfortable and they last for 2 or 3 years, actually. My favorite pair of tennis shoes I'm going to take with me to Egypt has a pair. I'm going to just toss them into the washing machine and get them all ready to go. So I do for sure recommend spending money. Superfeet are going to be around $30 to $40. It's worth it if you're going to walk a lot. They're really good. Colleen Bean says, eager to travel, but interested in your opinion on what countries are most advanced in their COVID vaccinations and protocols. Europe is doing great. England, I'm not so sure about. I'm not feeling real confident about even passing through Heathrow right now. I think that the UK feels messy to me. But Italy is so on top of things. I felt absolutely safe and comfortable traveling through there. I have lots of friends who are in Spain right now. Nina, by the way, hello Nina, if you're out there, it's her birthday today. So Spain, I would say, is good. Yeah, Europe in general, I think is fine. Morocco seemed to be really on top of things. And Egypt feels like they're organized. So I would say most places feel pretty organized. And a lot of people say, oh, traveling right now seems too dangerous. Pretty much everywhere you might potentially want to travel has lower COVID rates than we do here. So just saying. And most places have really strict protocols as well. Southeast Asia is opening up now. I'm not real sure what's going on there, but I know Thailand it opened as of the 1st of November. So we'll just have to see how that kind of happens. Let's see, with Diana. Hello, Diana. I hope you are well and your son is doing well. She asks, with many of the airline routes cut, which are the best airlines to fly to Europe on? And which search engines do you go to for finding flights? I am always a big fan of Delta. I think Delta does a great job. They are always responsive and they have lots of alternative routes too. So if a flight gets cut or something like that, they are able to route you back. They, I think, are much better than British, for example. I think they're much better than, I don't know, all of the airlines. I'm a big Delta Airlines fan, and they've always done well for me. And they have so many partner airlines that they can always figure out a way to get you where you need to go. I search Skyscanner, skyscanner.com. If you go there, they have usually the best options. You can also do a Google search on like Google Flights. That works, but Skyscanner is usually where I go because they also include a lot of the micro airlines like Wizz Air, for example, who you maybe haven't heard of, but they actually do a good job. So that's what I would recommend. Allison McNulty says, when do you think is the best time to book a flight to Rome for the end of March? Are there any additional considerations for booking that you keep in mind due to COVID? I would say for March, for Europe, because we already know Europe's open, we already feel pretty confident that situation isn't going to change. I would start to look at booking now. It's not going to get less expensive, is my feeling. If you can commit to dates, I would do it soon, before Christmas if you can, to commit to a date. And additional considerations for booking, like I said, I don't want to pass through London. You can't pay me to pass through London right now. I feel like the UK is a little bit wonky, so I would just avoid London personally. That's just my personal consideration. Otherwise, I would say in terms of the airports that are easiest to pass through right now, with all of the COVID stuff, Amsterdam by far is my choice. I am passing only through Amsterdam these days because I feel like they've got their act together and they've made it as easy as possible. So that would be my consideration. Look at where you're connecting. The other possibility that's nice and easy is, I hate it, but fly through New York. I recently flew through JFK on the way to Morocco and the way home from Puglia, just because it's so much easier just to do a direct flight from Europe to the United States instead of ping-ponging all around. So try to pass through as few countries as possible before you get back to the United States. That would be my COVID suggestion. This is an interesting question from Ernie Bilbro. You're planning a trip to circle the globe, leaving from the West Coast and making 5 stops. The goal is to find the sweet spot in terms of length of stay in each city. You want to stay long enough in each city to give yourself time to adjust to the time change and provide yourself just enough time to get a good feel for the city. Maybe visit 3 or 4 major attractions, while at the same time keeping in mind you want to complete the journey in as short a period of time as possible without feeling rushed. Wow, my question is, what 5 cities are you stopping in and for what length of stay in each? Oh my goodness, what a fun question. Whew, let's see, so I'm leaving from Seattle. I'm heading to the west and I need to choose 5 cities. So I think what I would do, I'd fly to Tokyo first. I would do a week in each place. I think less than a week, it's going to be too hard with adjusting to the time change. So I would do, and a week gives you, like I'm doing with all the staycation stuff, staying a week in each location right now, it just feels really good. It's just a really great approach. So I do a week in Tokyo. Then I would continue on and maybe go to, what would be next after that? You could do a week in Bangkok, because there's plenty to do there. And you could also fly from there down to, to the islands or something if you wanted to. Then I might go from there to something kind of interesting, could be like Abu Dhabi or Dubai. Go there for a week. There's plenty of stuff you could do there. From there, but we missed Asia. Maybe somewhere in India for a week. I'm not sure where. And then hit maybe somewhere in Europe. I'm not sure where you'd want to go. Paris or something like that for a week would be nice. Oh gosh, this is so hard. And maybe North Africa. So something like that. You could do a completely different thing where you go all the way south down to Australia or something like that, but that's also so iffy right now. I don't know that I would plan that. But yeah, I would do maybe Tokyo, Bangkok, then maybe Dubai, maybe, I don't know, Marrakesh, and then maybe something in Europe like Paris, and then fly home. Something like that. Anyway, that's a fun question. That's a fun mental puzzle for you guys to each to put together. So think about what you would do. Just that's a nice thing to think about while you drink your coffee. I was going to report back on my traveling electric toothbrush. I think I already packed it. I love the Sonicare, the new Sonicare, which is the toothbrush of my dreams. I have been hoping for years for Sonicare to make a truly portable travel toothbrush, and they finally done it. It is amazingly good. I love it. It's better than the Quip. I was using the Quip one, which you've probably seen in social media or at Target, which is just basically a vibrating toothbrush. It's not a sonic toothbrush, it's just a vibrating toothbrush. And by the way, it magically turns itself on and off sometimes. So I wasn't real happy with the Quip, but the Sonicare, it's called Sonicare 1. You can get two different versions. One is a plug-in USB rechargeable version or the battery operated version. I went with the battery operated version because the one battery can last, I think it's up to 3 months. It's very easy. It comes with a nice little kind of wrapper thing. I love it, love it, love it. It works great. It does not, however, fit into my toiletries kit, but that's okay. I just toss it in my bag anyway. So highly recommend. I got it in the crazy coral color. If you look, there is a link to that on the previous post on Facebook here, so you can just go and find exactly what I'm looking at. I got that ugly, ugly coral color because then I won't forget it. Remember, I always buy things with crazy colors so that I can find them. Like my ugly phone, it's pink. I only bought it like that because I'll see it when I'm leaving a hotel room. So you can find the link to that earlier on my Facebook page. And it looks like Tina Jones mentioned that that is on sale for $15 on Amazon this week. I don't know if that's true, but if that is, stock up and buy one for everybody you know for Christmas because it's the best travel toothbrush that anybody's ever made. Love it, love it, love it. Let's see. This is a great question again from Becky Gibson. International travel to and from the U.S. What has been your experience for airport arrival times? Is 2 hours enough? And what about pre-check? So yes, it has been my experience, and maybe you shouldn't listen to me, is that 2 hours has been way more than enough. But I have TSA pre-check and global entry and also the Sky Priority. So for me, I just literally walk in the airport and just go through security and go to the Sky Lounge, and it takes no time. I mean, I've had no problems at all. TSA pre-check is so nice and slick and fast. If you haven't done global entry, remember global entry is it's like $100 for 5 years, something like that. You can apply at your airport. That gives you TSA pre-check for every flight for the next 5 years, which is great. But the bigger benefit is when you come back, going through customs takes like 2 minutes. I've never waited in line to go through customs. When I land at SeaTac Airport, if I just have a carry-on, I can be out at the curb within 10 minutes, basically. So that's something you should think about. But yeah, 2 hours, if you have all your ducks in a row, is enough. If you don't, if you're checking bags and you don't have any kind of priority on an airline, if you don't have TSA pre-check, 3 hours. That's serious. You're going to need an extra hour because everything just takes a little bit longer. Especially 3 hours if you're concerned about the PCR test stuff. If you're having to take any kind of COVID test, you want to get there early in case you're going to have to run somewhere in the airport or nearby to get an impromptu COVID test. So yeah, 2 hours enough? Maybe. Only if you are sure you have your ducks in a row. I would say 3 hours just to be safe. Let's see. Do I do any tours in Canada? Nope. I don't really know Canada that well. I know Vancouver. I know BC. So somebody will have to show me around Canada, and maybe I'd consider that as a possibility. Leslie Travels asks, what are the COVID testing rules if you're on a bus trip through Europe, going through various countries? Oh boy, I would not suggest that right now. I am not doing that, and I would not suggest that right now because that is a headache. I mean, basically, if you're on a bus tour and you're doing multiple countries, that tour operator is going to have to deal with making sure that you get your COVID tests for entering into the next country if that's required. So if you're on a bus tour, you're going to want to deal with your tour provider and ask them that question because, well, I've had to take groups for COVID tests and it sucks. It's really hard. Especially because you worry somebody's going to turn out positive, and what's that going to mean for the whole group? So tour operators would be fools right now to run multi-country itineraries, in my opinion. So I'm going to leave that to whoever you're traveling with. Whew, yeah. The COVID testing rules are unclear. And by the way, within the European Union, it seems you can travel from country to country without getting a new test as long as you have a vaccine card. Is it going to stay that way? No, probably not. Everything's changing every 5 minutes. So, yeah, your best strategy for travel in Europe right now is just go to one place. One place. Stick with one country. It's enough for now. That would be my advice. Let's see. For a first time booking a guide, oh, this is a good question. Kathleen Larkin says, for a first timer booking a tour guide, what should you expect and look for? Obviously, a tour of a city or an area, but will they help with other things like hotel recommendations and transportation from another city? And what would be a recommended tip for the guide? So, local guides, that's not part of their service, generally speaking, to include transportation recommendations, or they usually don't book stuff for you. Typically, if you are going to ask a local guide additional questions, so let's say you've got a local guide for, let's say, Milan or something. Okay, so you've booked the guide, you've agreed to a price. Let's say you're going to pay them 300 euros or 350 for a full day, which seems about right. Um, then you start asking them questions and emailing them. Can you tell me how to get there? Can you help me find a train ticket? Can you do this and that? You're expecting more than what you're paying for, if that makes sense, because that person is going to be giving you their time for a day and you're paying them already. So to give them additional work by constantly sending them questions and things like that, remember that takes their time. Okay, so if you do that, you can certainly ask your local guide those questions. But if you do, and you've sent back 3 or 4 different emails, what is the appropriate tip? You better tip them for the time you've taken with your other questions. Because remember, we're professionals and our time is worth a lot. So if we're going to give you expert opinions about hotel recommendations, restaurant recommendations, help with transportation, that's fine. And a lot of local guides will just be generous with their time and give you that information. But I think it's very fair then to give them a really hefty tip. So if I was paying somebody 300 euros for a day and I'd ask them a slew of questions and they help me arrange a bunch of stuff, I would give them at least a 30 to 50 euro tip on top of that, because just remember, that's their time. How much time did they spend helping you? And assume that their time is worth anything from 50 to 100 euros an hour. Okay, so it's just fairness. Always be generous with the people who are generous with you. That's the way I look at it. Okay, and where to find local guides? I can always hook you up pretty much anywhere, almost anywhere in the world. I have contacts. You can always look at Guide Collective as well. We have some excellent resources there as well, my wonderful colleagues over there. So you're always welcome to shoot me a message if you're looking for a guide in a specific country, and I'll see what I can help you with. MJ, hey there, Melva. Melva asks me, can you recommend any Portugal places to learn their language and live with a family? Absolutely. I thought Lisbon was magnificent. If you want to live somewhere, what a great quality of life. So Lisbon would be a fun place to go stay and learn to speak the language. I would also suggest looking at something a little bit more, a little smaller. Porto is really super cute, but if you wanted to be in the countryside, I think Coimbra would be a good choice because it's a university city, and I would bet you could find lots of language exchange options in Coimbra. You probably would want a car in that case, just because it's a little bit less easily accessible with public transport, but Coimbra would be really fun, and there's a lot going on there. So, but Lisbon above all would be my top choice, just because it's beachy and sunny, and yeah, it's a fun place. Maureen McClay asks, if you always pack way too much for a trip, what specific tips do you have to scale way back and pack light? That's a great question. So the first thing to do is, when you pack, lay out everything and figure out what weighs the most. What is that one thing that's weighing you down? And I can already tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be your shoes, probably, or heavy clothes like jeans, or toiletries. Those are the things that typically weigh people down, or special extras like books, like paper books. I gave up traveling with books years ago. You can have just about any book you want on an iPad or a Kindle, and it weighs a lot less. So I would say that's number one. If you carry books and things, go to digital formats. And if you have toiletries, you can always do less with toiletries. And in fact, one of my tricks that I've been doing lately is not bringing shampoo and toothpaste and conditioner, because I just buy it when I get there. That way I don't have to drag it with me everywhere. So you can buy just miniature tiny little things, even for longer trips, and then just buy locally if you need more. So that's how you can pare down your toiletries. And then You have to look at shoes. Shoes are so heavy. I bring minimum 2 pairs just because your feet can get really tired, but start looking at the weight of shoes before you purchase them because that is the thing that's really going to weigh the most in your bag. It's always going to be shoes. So that would be what I would say. Most people pack way too many clothes. I do it too. I mean, I know that people on my last tours, one of my guests on my last tour said that he never saw me wear the same thing twice. And it's true. I bring enough clothes that I can go through 2 weeks without wearing the same thing twice. And you don't need that. Like you really can do with 2 pairs of pants, 3 shirts, a couple of different layers for warmth. You really can do with almost nothing. I mean, when I'm home, I wear the same outfit almost every day practically, the same sweats, the same shirts. You really don't need to bring as much as you think you do. So I would say really try to scale back unless you're going to wildly different temperatures. Try to have as few outfits as possible. You can always do laundry when you're on the road. So, but other packing tips, obviously, you can check out on my YouTube channel, my packing video. And I promise in the wintertime that I will do more new packing videos to kind of help coach you along on that stuff. It's just I need to actually have time on my hands. So. Let's see. Angela Hoy asks, we want to visit Switzerland next year if it's safe. And I wonder about either adding northern France or some part of Italy. What would you recommend for a 3-week trip? I think 3 weeks is a long time in Switzerland. And Switzerland is really expensive. So I think that would be a misstep personally, just because I think Switzerland, a week is good there. A week would be enough, in my opinion. Also, the food, a week is enough. But it depends. I mean, if you love Switzerland, cool. But yeah, I would definitely say adding either in northern Italy. It's really easy to add the Lake Como area. If you're in Ticino, that southern Italian region of Switzerland, you can hop over the border and you can go down into the lakes area. So Lake Como. I think also Lago Maggiore might have a border there. And you can go into Switzerland as well. So yeah, I would say definitely kind of pop across the border if you have a chance. Switzerland is close to everything, obviously, so you can easily do that. Let's see. Erica Shooter asks, our college kid is off to Scotland for a semester in January. Any advice for him on Scotland specifically or long-term travel or being an expat short-term? Now, obviously, we have so many Scottish experts, we don't know what to do with them, so I certainly would not suppose myself to be an expert. I have worked on the guidebooks up there and I do know Scotland pretty well. I would say my advice is go have fun and go to the pubs and go to Edinburgh. I love Edinburgh. That's a great place for college students to hang out. I actually was hoping Luca could go to school there because it just has such a great college scene. But I would say if you're interested, you can go to Guide Collective and you can find our friends, the Scottish Blethers. They would be great people to contact. Liz Lister, Helen Houston, they're absolutely fantastic. So you might want to consider doing that. Also, as far as being long-term travel or an expat short-term, really I would say the best thing I can suggest is just to try to find your people. Finding your patterns and all that kind of stuff, that's what makes long-term travel so much fun. Find a coffee shop you like. Talk to people. I was a really shy student and it was really hard for me to make friends, and if I could redo it, that's what I would tell myself to do, is to be bolder about meeting people and trying to find local friends, because that's what makes foreign study really fun. Let's see. So Megan Thayen, I can't pronounce your last name. Let's say things remain as they currently are in relation to COVID. Which European country would you say is most user-friendly as far as hoops to jump through to get into the country? Also, a good experience as far as important sites, restaurants, etc. being open. So in Europe, everything's open that I know of. I mean, for the most part, all major sites and things you might want to see are open. The caveat on that is most of them take reservations now. So even museums that didn't have reservations in the past do now. So just be prepared for that you're going to have to do a little bit of thinking ahead. So if you want to go to whatever museum, like actually plan it all out. I used to really advocate for just being spontaneous and do what you want and, kind of, not have plans. Yeah, those days are kind of over right now. So that would be my biggest suggestion there. But as far as which country is most user-friendly, I thought Iceland was amazing. Iceland is super, super organized, and they are, with their protocols and all that kind of stuff, you just register ahead of time. You get a little barcode, they zap it on the way in, you're good to go. They have free COVID testing on the way out. I thought they were and they are a European country, so that would be something easy, would be going to Iceland. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I thought they were the most user-friendly country. France is not too bad, but France and Italy both suffer from multiple layers of paperwork and mysterious forms you were supposed to fill out that you didn't know you were supposed to fill out. So I'm not going to put them in the ease category. I would say Iceland is the most organized by far. I'm sure Scandinavian countries in general are, but from my experience, I was really impressed with them. And everything there is open, everything there is accessible, and it's a really great destination. So I would recommend Iceland. Let's see. Hillary Turner says, I thought you'd created a compilation of COVID expectations while traveling, but I couldn't find it. I will write something up, I promise. But the problem is they keep changing. So every time I try to write it, it's like, I don't know, that didn't age well. So that's why I keep looking here on Facebook, because I'm going to keep updating as we go. My husband and I want to start traveling, but we're not big on the extra fees for testing, and we were trying to figure out how many times do we have to test. So the question is, how often do you need to test? That depends on how many countries you're going to. So if you're going to one country, you just get tested once when you leave, and you get tested once when you return. Okay, as far as the cost on that goes, the one for the return costs almost nothing. Like I said, 15 euros in Italy to get back. To get over there really depends on where you live. The city of Seattle offers free testing. So all the tests I've taken have been free. I'm sure they're not free. I'm sure they're charging my health insurer. But they have been, for the most part, free. When you get them at the actual airport, yeah, they're expensive. They're like $200. So just budget $200 per person into your plan, your budget plan, and assume you're going to have to spend that. But do some creative investigation and see if anybody in the place you live or your healthcare provider will do it for free. Very well, your healthcare provider may do that for free. So that's how you can kind of lower the cost. I expect this to change over time because travel is never going to get back where it was unless there's some real bold action, which I think means that COVID testing is going to have to be free across the board. Here in the US, it's never going to be that way because health insurance, capitalism, blah, blah, blah. That's all kind of bad. In other destinations, Iceland has already set the trend by having free COVID testing stations near the airport, and I suspect other countries are going to follow suit on that eventually. Nancy Owens said, would like to hear your thoughts on Split, Croatia, north to Venice, south to Lecce or Bari, and fly into Split and out of Venice. So she's got a route. She wants to fly into Split. She wants to go out of Venice. That sounds fun, but that's a lot of travel. Holy cow. Like are you going to drive that? That's a lot of driving. I think it would be fun. We did that this past spring. Andrew and I did. I flew into Split, which was a great place to fly into. Really easy. You can go to Trogir from there. You can go down to Split. You can go out to all the islands like Brač and Hvar. And we had a great time doing that. Vis, we went out to Vis Island. So that right there could be its own vacation. But if you want to fly in there and then drive north, yeah, you could do that. You can stop in Istria, you can stop in Slovenia, you can stop in Venice, but remember all those borders you've just crossed, right? So you're going to have to get COVID tests every hop. Yeah? Okay. So that's kind of a hassle, and that's a very long drive. Yeah, you're going to have, that depends on how much travel you want to do. It would be fun, but I feel like those are almost two separate things. But if you want to do a mega trip, yeah, Split all the way up to Venice, all the way down the coast to the very tippy heel of Italy. Yeah, it's doable. That's just a really long drive, but it'd be fun. I would probably want to save a trip like that for good weather, like in the summertime, so that you can enjoy the beaches and things like that. So that would be my suggestion. Jabra Edwards asks, how did your packing work out this time between Iceland and Italy and Morocco? Oh boy, that was fun. It worked out fine. I was really surprised, actually. My bag for Iceland and Sicily couldn't have been more diverse, but it actually worked out really fine. But what happened was in Iceland, I had maybe 2 or 3 outfits. I wore the same things almost every day. But who cares? Because when you're in Iceland, you're basically just wearing your coat all the time. I did pick up a hat and gloves when I was there, which was fun. I had in mind that those would be my souvenirs. And I bought an itchy Icelandic sweater, which I love. So yeah, so I bought some extra layers when I was there, but I planned to anyway because I thought that would be a fun souvenir. But yeah, it worked. It was a heavy bag, heavier than I normally would carry. It was probably 25 pounds, I think. And I could have been better, but yeah, no, it worked. It was okay. The Morocco to southern Italy one, kind of the same thing. Morocco was very hot. It was in probably the 80s and 90s the entire time. And then it was actually pretty chilly in southern Italy. By the end, I was really ready to come home because I wasn't really prepared for winter time or late fall in Italy. So, but it worked. So I think that'll be something I'll do when I come back from my next trip in late November. I'll kind of go over what I packed and how it worked out, just so you guys can kind of see what I did. Let's see. And yeah, the question, I wanted to know whether the layers in Iceland were enough for the temperatures and wind. Yeah, well, and the clear favorite thing I brought was my down parka. I wasn't going to bring it. And then in the end, I did because it's super lightweight. It's a wonderful coat by Arc'teryx, and it's very warm. It's my usual winter coat that I wear around home. But I bought it years ago because it was like one of the lightest parkas I could find. So if you find a really high quality, like I would invest in a really high quality down parka if you're going to go on a trip like that, because it was worth it to have something super light but incredibly warm. Jill Crary, my friend Jill. Nice to hear from you. She is asking for a friend. What do you think about Rome this Christmas? Good time to be there? Any sense of what will be opened or closed? And how about for women traveling alone? Hotel or Airbnb? So Rome for Christmas? Yeah, Christmas is fun in Rome. It's not as exciting, I guess you could say, as like German destinations that have those fun markets. The Rome Christmas markets are they're not that exciting. The decorations are really pretty. If you're religious and you like going to see Mass, you can go to Mass at St. Peter's on Christmas Eve. That's pretty magical. So it's most things are going to be open at Christmas time. The only problem is eating is tough. Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Italians are not interested in opening their restaurants. So that can be really problematic. So you might want to kind of plan ahead. And that's why I would probably recommend an apartment rental over a hotel so that you could go a few days early and buy groceries just in case you have a hard time finding restaurants, because that could be problematic. Also, choose carefully the area of town you're in. The area around Via Firenze and Piazza della Repubblica, I wouldn't stay there at Christmas because it's going to be dead. That's a business part of town. So I would probably want to stay more in a residential part of town, like even something kind of fun like Testaccio or Trastevere, where you're going to have more human life, because at the holidays, the businessy parts of town are just going to be shut. But cool idea. Yeah, Christmas in Rome is a lot of fun. If you want to go pre-Christmas, I would probably go at around what is it? The Assumption, is that what that is? December 8th, I think it is. That there's a lot of festivities around that holiday that are kind of fun. Okay, let's see. Any thoughts about doing an off-the-beaten-path staycation in Montreal or Quebec? I have not thought about that, but I would be happy to think about that. I haven't been to Quebec in years, but boy, that's a cool city. Interesting idea. I had no idea there was an interest in Canada, but hey, let me consider that. That would be pretty fun. Let's see. Olivia Gregory asks a very interesting question. I'm supposed to go to Israel next March on a church tour. What are your thoughts on going there, particularly safety and COVID issues? Well, y'all know that I did go to Israel, and I did an Israel tour last year, and I haven't really talked much about it. And part of the reason I haven't talked much about it is that I found it a really tricky destination. I was very conflicted about what I saw there and what we experienced there. And that's why I haven't decided to offer a full-blown Israel tour again. I will. I just need to think about it more. My thoughts on going there is that I think everybody should go there. I think everybody should go to Israel. Even if you're not religious, even if you don't have a particular historical interest, just from a world events point of view, I think everybody should go to Israel just so that they can see for themselves what goes on there. It's really interesting. I'm not going to take a position on it one way or another because I'm still not sure what I think about it. But yeah, I think everybody should go. In terms of COVID, they have been really proactive about getting people um, vaccinated, and I would say the Israeli government is one of the most cautious in the world about everything. So I would feel confident going there, just in terms of health and safety precautions. Absolutely, I would feel totally comfortable about that. It's the other stuff that's harder, like the political stuff. Um, yeah, yeah, it's an interesting and weird destination, and I'm going to have to think more about it before I take more people there. But it is absolutely 100% worth checking out. So let me just check through here and see if I have anything else I wanted to talk about. Let's see. Oh, Kat O'Hara, recommendations for a woman traveling alone for 6 weeks. I had been hoarding my leave for a nice trip before COVID. I'm hoping to go to Ireland, UK, and Europe. I had good luck with hostels when I went to Australia many moons ago. Looking for a mix of budget with some worthy splurges. I'd gotten a new passport and recently realized it has not a single stamp in it. So what would a woman traveling alone for 6 weeks do? Anything. Women can travel alone anywhere. I do it all the time. I go everywhere. So it really depends on you and what you're comfortable with. I think you absolutely should just open your mind up to what you want. And you can think outside of Europe too. It doesn't have to be Europe. I mean, Europe is great. Everybody loves Europe, and it's a very safe place. I mean, everywhere in Europe I felt safe as a single woman. But maybe think outside of the box. Think about Southeast Asia. You know how I feel about Southeast Asia. I would be perfectly comfortable going there by myself. Um, Gosh, the world is honestly your oyster. The only places that are a little bit tougher, I would say, the Arab world is a little bit tougher, just on women individually. I think it's fine. I feel safe traveling in Morocco or wherever, but it can be a little bit more challenging. But yeah, I would say anywhere. So 6 weeks, yeah, if you want to do Europe, hostels are super fun, even for people who are older. But of course, I aged out of hostels, I think in my mid 30s, I realized, because after having children, anything wakes me up. Like, really, just the sensitivity to listening to a baby for dozens of years. You don't sleep as well as you did when you were a teenager, and I just can't sleep in hostels because they're too noisy. So, and I don't like earplugs. So that's really up to you. If you can sleep like a rock anywhere, definitely hostels are a great place to meet people. There are a lot of women-only hostels. The other thing you can do is you can join some of these women travel groups. There's a Girls Love Travel women's group for women that are over 35, and that's a great place for you to go and talk to people and find other travel partners and stuff like that. So yeah, go where you want to go. You can go anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. You'll be fine. I go everywhere. So let's see. Let me just check comments if you guys have any other questions or comments. Do you think it would be okay to do a bus tour next year, and how is COVID being handled in Europe? Is life normal, so to speak? A bus tour is fine, but as I said, I wouldn't do multiple countries personally. I just think that's going to be a nightmare. And I'm not offering any multi-country tours except for the ones that Andrew's doing that are in the Balkans, where we've figured out how to do all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I just think it's tenuous. I've been very much in favor of staycation styles, just because it's a really good moment to be doing that stuff, to be staying in one place and seeing fewer things, but seeing them in a more quality way. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about multi-country bus tours. I did successfully run the Morocco tour, which was a bus tour that was more traditional in style with whatever 2 days in each place. And it was fine, actually. But you do increase your risk when you do that stuff. So I don't know. That's really up to you how you do it. But yeah, multi-country, I don't think I would do. Can I type in the name of my coat? The name of my coat is Arc'teryx, Arcteryx, and you've seen it yeah, on me a million times. Did I do Cucina Quarantena this past week? I did not. I'm sorry. I've been sleeping basically for the past week. So it is what it is. Let's see. Let me just double check and make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see. Yeah, I think I hit pretty much all of the main topics that you guys wanted to talk about today. I would say just the things I've learned recently, just to kind of sum up, is that Travel right now is totally possible. You're going to get something stuck up your nose all the time. And I have to tell you, I'm really bored of it. But I'm used to it. It is what it is. I'm heading off to Egypt on Tuesday. I feel perfectly confident about that. I think that most countries have their ducks in order. And in a sense, one way to look at all of this disaster is it's a big hassle and it's dangerous and all this kind of stuff. But on the other hand, there's never been a time when every country in the world has been paying such close attention to the health and safety standards of their visitors. Airplanes are cleaner than they've ever been. Like there's a lot of things going on from this that I think are actually going to be really positive. So I think just kind of stay tuned, and you need to go in your own time when you are ready to travel. But I have had no troubles. Somebody did ask if somebody in my group had caught COVID. There was one person on my Morocco tour, and I don't want to get into too much of it because it is personal information, who found out she had COVID before she joined the tour. So she did need to quarantine. What happened was the hotel in Morocco was fantastic in running interference and helping her get tested, and she just basically kept getting tested until she came, it was a negative test, and then she was able to go. Most countries right now, if you do end up catching COVID, they do essentially put you in a hotel room, and then the hotel runs interference for you. They help, they deliver food and all of that. There is a cost to that, right? So this is the thing. If you are going to travel, I do recommend looking at travel insurance, because most travel insurance policies right now are going to offer a COVID kind of piece to it so that they will cover it if you do test positive. What I recommend doing is when you're going home, get the test kits. That I don't know if you can still do them, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about it, but the kind of test kit that you can get that is online. Do that so you can find out in your own, or just go to a pharmacy and buy a personal test kit if you think you have gotten sick. We had some people who got colds who went and they did just personal tests just to make sure they didn't have COVID. So the experience is that if somebody does end up with COVID, that basically every government seems very, very set up for this stuff, and they have certain protocols, and it works out. It's just you're risking being in a hotel room for a week to 2 weeks. That's what the risk is. So yeah, I mean, it's not a zero risk. It's a pretty low risk, but it's not a zero risk, right? So anyway, it's a tricky time, but it's not impossible. So the other question I wanted to ask you guys while I have you here is, what do you guys want me to be covering in the future? Now that the pandemic is kind of winding down, and I'm happy to kind of keep it on with presenting new countries like we were doing, the Where in the World thing with Coffee Chat and all of that, and going back to cooking. I don't know if you guys want me to go back to doing that, but after I get home on Thanksgiving, I'll be home for a few months. So please let me know what kind of content you'd like to see here. If you'd like me to keep doing interviews, what countries you'd like me to cover, if there's countries that you have thought about you'd like more information on, we can really do anything you want. The last thing I wanted to let you know is that Patreon friends, I am still going to keep on keeping on with the Patreon, and I have a very exciting little project coming up, which is that I have a friend enlisted to transcribe all of the Cucina Quarantena recipes, and we're going to have those exclusive to our Patreon members. So the first one is going to go up tomorrow. It's a recipe that I've already done. We've transcribed it and put a recipe there, so we're going to post new recipes. I'm hoping at least once a week we'll have a new recipe just for Patreon members, as well as having our regular meetups and a couple of other things coming up for Patreon members that are special, including my print giveaway, which I am going to be doing this year. I just need to actually have time to print them all. So Andrew's coming the first week of December, and he's probably going to be put to work putting stamps on all of your the Patreon members' prints. But there is an art print in it for my Patreon members, who I think it's at the 25 and higher level, I believe. If you're a donor at that level, then you will get a free art print from me as a little Christmas gift. So I think that's all the news that's fit to print for now. If you have more questions, you are welcome to go ahead and put questions into the comments, and I'll try to get to those at a later date. But I think that covers everything for now. So just keep up your travel dreaming, and you'll be able to join me in Egypt as of, I believe it is Thursday. There will be a special Patreon event from Egypt. I have to talk to Hoda about which one. That's why I haven't posted a Zoom link yet. But Hoda and I will present a special event just for Patreon members. I'm thinking about maybe something to do with the Valley of the Kings. So we'll wait and we'll see. But otherwise, we'll see you from Egypt coming up soon. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, more Ask Me Anything's coming up in the future, maybe one in December. Okay? Ciao.